Hello, everybody. We're going to be doing a fun tag today. I seen it first from Carla Astrology, but it originated with Abby the Witch. And um, I just thought it would be fun. And I'm just sitting here between calls. So I thought we would get into this one. So the first question is your name. Does my name have any stories with it? So my real birth name is Rhiannon, and that was very serendipitous as a witch because I was born the year that the Fleetwood Mac song Rhiannon came out in 1977. And luckily, my mom had great taste in music and was a Fleetwood Mac fan. And it's the story of a Welsh witch, and I am of Welsh heritage. I have a couple of books up there. I thought you could see it, but up in that corner behind the Egyptians is my Rhiannon statue, and behind that there is a book about the lore of Rhiannon. I will say though, as a deity, I have not yet been able to connect with her. I have tried. It's not like a full on no, but it's also not like really calling me in the ways that Sekhmet and Isis and more of the Egyptian goddesses have. So that's okay. I just kind of like, okay, we'll come back at a later date and see if we can't get Rhiannon to want to work with me. But I remember growing up and hearing the song Rhiannon by Fleetwood Mac, and it always felt so special. And I always had this fantasy that one day I was going to meet Stevie Nicks, and it always felt like I was going to be at one of her concerts, and I was going to be like waving my arms around like, my name's Rhiannon, my name's Rhiannon. She was going to look at me and come and basically adopt me and be like I was her long lost, daughter, and like as if I'm the only person in the world named Rhiannon. Although I will say I have never met another Rhiannon that's older than me, or that was name has been spelt exactly Rhiannon. I have met other Rhiannons that are spelt correctly, but they're all younger than me. And I have met a lot of Rihannas, Briannan, all of different variations of the name. I will say it drove me nuts when the singer artist Rihanna came out, who spells it Rihanna. But anyway, so yeah, I really feel like it was a destined name. I mean, I remember in kindergarten learning how to spell it. It was just so difficult. 8 letters, and just it was hard, and my teachers could never pronounce it correctly. In the modern day, most people get it right. But I felt like in my childhood, people didn't even try. They did not even try to pronounce it. I mean, everywhere I would go, I go to a dentist or a doctor's office, even still mostly to this day, they'll call me by my last name. And I always know because I see them kind of looking at the chart, and like, I see the R kind of coming out, and I'll be like, Rhiannon. And they're like, yeah. So anyway, that is really serendipitous, and I feel very lucky. My mom had 8 kids, and she had 6 girls. So I was her second daughter. My older sister's name was Miranda, which is a beautiful name, but we always called her Mandy growing up, was her nickname after the Barry Manilow song Amanda. Or no, it wasn't Amanda. It was Oh Mandy. So anyway, if I'm going to pick a song to be named after, I would definitely take Fleetwood Mac over Barry Manilow. But I do think Miranda is a beautiful name. And then I have a sister. So it goes Miranda, Rhiannon, Jennifer, Kimber, Heather, Michaela. So those are the 6 girls that my mom had. But there was a pretty big age gap in between Miranda and myself and my half sisters because she had them with a different man. So anyway, I feel like Miranda and I got the better names for sure. So yeah, that was my name, and I'm very happy to have it. But a lot of people think that I just choose it as a witch name, with which there's nothing wrong with that. People can choose a witch name, but that is my birth name. I was given that name at birth. So that's that story. I am 44 and I will be 45 this December. And honestly, I feel so thrilled about that. Um, as a witch, obviously, I think a lot of women are coming into this at an earlier and earlier age. But I think I'm kind of in that gap between like our crones and our, younger women. And I'm kind of in a transitionary time. I still consider myself a crone already, mostly because I've gone through a lot of life experiences at an early age. Like I became a widow before I even turned 40. I became a mother early, so I think it makes sense that you enter your crone years even earlier. It depends on who you ask. A lot of people think you have to be through menopause. A lot of people think you need to be over 50, but a lot of people are opening up to um, whatever you feel. It certainly doesn't scare me. I'm excited to be entering into this wisdom. I stopped dyeing my hair in 1990 or in 1999 in 2019. You can see a couple sprinkles of gray. I've actually kind of was hoping to have more by now. But I have learned that that's actually a copper deficiency. People that gray early, that's a copper deficiency. So I must be pretty good on copper because I'm not having a lot of gray come in. And I really pray and want like a nice solid stripe, but haven't earned my stripes yet, apparently. So yeah, I will be 45 and I can definitely feel a shift. I wasn't like nervous or scared or like, oh, I'm going to be so old. I was much more like upset about turning 30 than I was turning 40. But I will say that since from 40 to 45, I definitely can feel a change in me as far as like fucks to give. And I just wanted to share this little thought. Many of you may have heard it before, but I heard it the other day, which is literally part of perimenopause, part of like growing older and going through a change is your hormones start to begin to change and they start to make you less agreeable because part of the hormones that make us super agreeable and just like complacent and easy to get along with is because that's to help us to be able to have babies. That's to help us to attract men so that we can procreate and continue our species. So as your fertility goes down, those hormones that make you agreeable go down. And the hormones that start to replace it with are kind of the hormones that are like, I could give a fuck less. And I love it. Like, I don't ever want to go back to being a people pleaser, lacking confidence. And if that kind of ties into a later question, which is number 10, advice for your younger self. But definitely, I feel privileged to be entering my crone years. I look up to all of my elder witches and crones, and I just really feel like we need to be honoring our elders. I'm a more traditional person in that way. So almost 45. Number 3, astrology, Western, real sky. So I studied Hermetic astrology, which is more kind of a mix of, it's still on the Western side, but there are some differences in Hermetic astrology as well. It's a lot more focused on astrodynes, which are, really cool to learn about, like the power of the planets and if it's discordant or if it's in harmony. So I am learning about real sky now. I think it's super interesting. I totally am like digging in, It is hard to let go of something that you've put a lot of time in, but I think more than that, for me, I am able to see the Western astrology working. I know a lot of people feel like they just don't see it, and that's okay. For me, I see it. I think though maybe it's because in my chart, if I do switch over to real sky, the only thing that changes is my sun sign. I'm still Leo moon. I'm still an Aries rising. And honestly, actually, I will say that I do feel a little bit more Sagittarius than I do to Capricorn. The Capricorn part of me was the part that really never fit. And that's why, so for me, astrology just only didn't fit or make sense to me when all I knew was my star sign. Because all I knew was Capricorn. And I become more of that Capricorn energy as I get older. But as I was younger, I definitely did not resonate with that energy. And I could totally see that I would have fit that Sagittarian energy, but I also have the other fire energy, either way you slice it. And Sagittarius is a fire element. And either way you slice it, I also have ninth house placement. So that Sagittarius is in me either way you look at it. So I guess for me, it's just kind of very similar. But I'm continuing to study both. I don't feel like I have to throw one thing away in order to incorporate something else. I never really even incorporated astrology until I'd been studying for many years. And so I don't plan to like do a real sky takeover until I have a lot more study. And it's just kind of hard because there's not a lot of resources for the real sky. So anyway, that's my little spiel on astrology. But as far as my practice, I do study a lot of the planetary energies because I work with planetary magic, and I work with zodiacal energy, and I'm actually doing a lot of study on the fixed stars and using the fixed stars for magic. So anyway, I am on the fence about it still. We'll say that. Religious upbringing, hard yes. So I am born and raised in Utah. I still live in Utah. Hardcore Mormon LDS Latter-day Saint upbringing. And I mean, I'm talking, we couldn't drink caffeine. I could not even watch PG-13 movies until I was 13, and I was not allowed to watch any rated R movies. Church every single Sunday, youth groups. And, for people that aren't really familiar, they are considered in the Christian group because they believe in Jesus, but they do read the Bible, kind of, but they more study the Book of Mormon. So it's kind of a bummer because now that not now, I mean, honestly, my whole life I have been really interested in studying all different religions. Again, I feel like that's my ninth house placements, but I have Mercury in the ninth house as well as my sun. So I've always been interested in those things, but I wished I would have been able to study the Bible more growing up. I mean, of course, I know I can now, and I do, but I was more raised studying the Book of Mormon. I left the church when I was 12. I could decide if I wanted to live with my mom or my dad because they were divorced. I moved in with my mom, and I went from a very structured, every part of my life was controlled, to literally no rules, complete freedom. And I went hog wild at the age of 13, began drinking, doing drugs, literally basically dropped out of school. I was a very, very, very wild teenager because the first 12 years of my life had been so controlled that I went the complete opposite. And now I know that, structure is important. I kind of have evened out in the middle. But for the majority of my 20s, I would have considered myself an atheist. I feel like a lot of times when you leave a certain super, strict religious upbringing, you have to swing that pendulum all the way to the other side, which for me was just I don't believe in any kind of God. I just didn't even want to deal with it. And then once I got more closer to my 30s, I started probably my Saturn return. I started to go, okay, I do believe in a creator, but I was very didn't feel comfortable with Jesus, the idea of Jesus at all. That really triggered me and my upbringing. And then I started to really jump into more of the Buddhist principles. And I really loved the Hindu religion and all the different deities. And Ganesh was a big, big, big part of my life, and deities that I worked with in my 30s. I mean, Ganesh helped me. And Ganesh helped me manifest this whole house that I am in now. And I have a big sticker. I've talked about my big Ganesh moment in a couple videos, but I need to probably dedicate a whole video just to how I was able to manifest this house. And that's just to date, that's my biggest accomplishment as far as manifestation and truly helping me believe in the power of manifestation. Ganesh is the elephant god and the remover of obstacles, and he really helped me. And then now I'm really more moving into the Egyptian deities. However, when I did do my Reiki, my initial Reiki placements back in 2015 or 2016, Jesus did kind of show up for me in those classes, and I was a little bit uncomfortable, to be honest. And now I really accept that Jesus was a healer and Jesus was a misfit just like us, and you don't have to be a Christian and you don't have to be part of a religion. I just include Jesus as an ascended master just like I would any other deity. So that's really where I'm at now, but I'm estranged from most of my family because I'm only so I told you that my mom had 8 kids, but then my dad remarried and she had 5 kids. So I have a ton of siblings, and we were raised together from a very early age. So in my dad's side of the family, there were 9 kids, the 4 that my dad had with my mom and her 5. And then in my mom's side of the family, there were 8 of us, but really only just the girls and my brother stayed with my dad. So anyway, out of like the Mormon side of my family, out of those 9 kids, I'm of only 2 that have left the church. And the other one is my sister Miranda that I talked about. She joined the Navy and she's lived in San Diego for 25 years. So anyway, I'm very estranged from that side of the family. They're good people. They really are good people, but it's a cult. It's 100% a cult. But the interesting thing is that now I totally, through learning about occultism and secret societies, and the Mormon church was started by a Mason. Joseph Smith was a Freemason. He was a master Mason. When they found his body, he was wearing a Jupiter's talisman in his left pocket. And he was using like seer stones. And so it's interesting because Joseph Smith, the founder of the Mormon church, was a mystic. So actually, I left the church, and I think that the church today is corrupt. But I actually now feel that Joseph Smith himself was really onto something. And I do know that he took a lot of it from the Masons, but I really do feel like he was visited. He said it was by Angel Moroni. I think it was a Pleiadian. The way that he depicts and talks about what this angel looked like, I think it was a star being. Um, so anyway, it's interesting that I left the church, but now all of the things that the Mormons want to hide from people now are the things I would believe in. And what they have turned the church into is, to me, just disgusting and horrible. And it's just a money making, it's a corporation, if you ask me. So anyway, I was definitely raised with a super interesting religious background. Manifestations for the future. My husband and I want to retire on a catamaran and sell the world. And we are like so serious. And the manifestation of this house, my husband actively helped me with. So he's 100% on board with manifestations. He's a believer. When he and I got together, he was pretty much an atheist, had no spiritual background or religious background. He just really didn't care. And now he's like more into it than even me sometimes. And so I know that we'll do it. We're gonna buy a catamaran and we're gonna sail around the world, kind of like a van life situation, but on the ocean. And so that's gonna be fun. Favorite season. So I live in Utah, so we get all 4 seasons. And I honestly do love all 4 seasons. I don't think I would ever want to live anywhere except for on the ocean. When we're on the ocean, I'll be okay with tropical all the time. But if I'm living in a home type situation, sorry, my lighting keeps changing. I like to experience the seasons. And since we're in fall, it's hard for me not to say that I don't love fall. I do love fall. My husband and I met originally back in the day in high school when we dated. We have an interesting love story. I've spilled the beans on that on this YouTube channel, but you'll have to scroll way back to like 2015, 2016. So anyways, we met originally in fall, and then when we came back together after 20 years, we got married on September 21st. We love it. We have a beautiful fall here. The trees and the mountains change all different colors. So, but I do love summer. I love spring. I snowboard, or at least I used to. So I like winter. It would just be hard for me to choose a favorite season, to be honest. Favorite color, and do I think it, mixes over to our aura? So Carla was talking about this. I have had my Curlian photography picture taken at a spiritual fair as well. I know that they do change over time. And I think that Carla might be onto something too as well about like what part it could change with like age. Mine was violet. When I had mine done, it was violet. and I can't really remember what that means, but it is my favorite color. My favorite color is purple. And now it's kind of morphing into this color lapis, like that really dark, deep blue. I'm not a pink girl. I don't like pink. I've never really liked pink at all. So purple, and it did match my aura color, so that's could be a coincidence. But when my husband had his done, we went to Sedona, Arizona in 2020, and he'd never had his done, so we had his done, and his was orange. And yeah. So number 8, job, career. Do I help provide for my family? And yes, I do. And I do, this is what I do full time. Most of you that watch my channel know that I'm a full time reader, and I work on different psychic hotlines, but I also have a private practice. I could do a lot more in my private practice, honestly, because I always at any given time have like 5 people trying to get into me. But working on the hotlines has kind of ruined me because I don't have to schedule anything. And now I really hate scheduling. I hate having to commit to something in 2 weeks when I don't know if my energy is going to be there for that or not. So I prefer to just be able to wing it. And on the hotlines, I just flip on my availability when I want. So I do Reiki, I do crystal healing, I do astrology, and I do tarot. But for the first half of my adult life, I worked as a my mind's going blank. Engineering technician for a medical device company, and I used to work in a lab, and I used to work with all different types of laboratory equipment, working on submitting products for regulatory for the FDA. So, I had like that type of career, and I really loved it, and I did well. And then I just thought, I was approaching my 40s, and I said, well, if I'm going to do something different, I need to start now. And then that's when my husband died, and they wouldn't give me any bereavement because we had been divorced for 30 days. And so I said, well, fuck you guys, and left a 20-year career with no plan. But that's what brought me here, because through my need to heal myself from his death and be there for my girls, and I really dove headfirst into my spirituality and healing. And so it all worked out the way that it was supposed to. So yes, I do provide for my family. My husband, does well, and I wouldn't have to necessarily work if I didn't want to. We could downsize some things in our life if I wanted to, but I love my job, and we do live a comfortable life because of it. And it makes all the things that I like a tax write-off, which is kind of nice as well. Things that make me unique. One of the most random funny things about me that makes me unique is I have 2 separate thumbs. Now, it's probably going to be hard to show on video, but like my bones are completely lined up, and I don't know if you guys are able to tell how much shorter and fatter this one is. I mean, like, it's a good 1/2 inch shorter, and it's a completely different shape. I used to tell people when I was a kid, like, this is a toe. It's not really a thumb, it's a toe. But really the truth is that I sucked my thumb till I was like 6 years old. And a lot of kids will put it here in their teeth and it gives them an overbite. I put that bitch all the way back up, so the roof of my mouth grew. This grew. This is like a suction cup. This thumb doesn't fit there, but this one goes. And so it didn't mess up my teeth. I never had braces. I probably needed them on my bottom teeth. I never had braces, but my thumb literally grew. I don't know if it grew into the roof of my mouth or if it switched through. I don't know, but it's shorter, fatter. It's just the weirdest thing. So that's a really unique thing that people like to make fun of me about. And it's like a fun kind of thing. And another thing is I have a really big scar right here on my hand, and it's a really crazy story. It was like a single white female type situation where my neighbor basically wanted to kill me and become me, and it's a kind of a tragic story because I didn't know what was going on. I mean, I knew what was going on, but I didn't know how wrong it was. She was basically being abused by both her parents. Her father was sexually abusing her. Her mother was physically abusing her because I believe her mother knew and wasn't doing anything about it. It was kind of like that book, A Boy Called It, where she had two other sisters, but she was the only one that was targeted sexually by her father and physically by her mother. And the other two sisters were like princesses who got whatever they wanted, were never abused. They literally had her down in a basement with no bedroom. It was like an unfinished basement, living in squalor. I don't even know what the word is. Filth. And her two other sisters had perfect, beautiful bedrooms. And then I was living next door in a perceivably perfect Mormon home with the perfect life. And I did have a pretty good, upbringing there. As much as that was a control thing, I was safe, and I got every meal that I needed, and I never went without anything. So she thought if she could just take me out, she could take my place. She would call my parents mom and dad. If my grandparents came over, she'd call them grandma and grandpa. She tried to kill me several times, tried to suffocate me under a plastic swimming pool when I was like 6. Like, I can't even go into how many different times she tried to like take me out. And then when we were in 7th or 8th grade, I think 8th grade, we got stuck together in a class for home ec because we were neighbors, and we had to make suckers to sell at this bake sale. And if you've ever made candy or suckers, you have to get it very, 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 very hot. And you have to stir it the whole time. And she wasn't stirring it. And I think I told her, like, you got to stir it, it's going to burn. And I called her like an idiot or something, And that, I shouldn't have done that. But she took the wooden spoon and literally flung it onto my hand. I had like 3rd-degree burns. Then she tried to block the door so that I couldn't go get help because she was afraid she was going to get in trouble. And the whole time my like skin's boiling and bubbling. It used to take up almost all of my hand. It's shrunk a little bit, but it kind of looks like a rubber duck. It's probably not showing up very well. But I get a lot of questions about that scar because it's right on my hands. It's not a very good memory, but my thumb and my scar on my hands like I'm always getting questions about that. Advice for my younger self. Yeah. I definitely have always been very highly sensitive and empathic, but I didn't know what that was. And I wish I could go back and tell my younger self. I might get emotional during this. I wish I could go back and tell her because I suffered a lot as a young teenager from like the time you hit puberty till like 15, 16. And I did try to unalive myself several times and ended up in a lot of different hospitals and institutions and all different programs and things like that. Because I didn't know that I think a lot of the things that I thought that I was feeling and carrying didn't belong to me. Sorry, you guys. I wasn't expecting to really talk about that, but I wish I could go back and tell her, this isn't yours. You don't have to carry it. And, you're not crazy. And you are feeling those things. The things that you do know them, because I would know things and I would be told that like, I didn't, and how could I know that? And, always very highly sensitive. I think that you can be an empath and not be an HSP. And I think you can be HSP and not be an empath. And if you're both and you know what those are, I mean, overstimulated by noises and lights and sounds and like the anxiety that it gives, and people just really lose their patience with you, which I can kind of understand. But if you understand those things about yourself, then you can help other people have a tolerance for you and advocate for yourself, which I know how to do now as an adult. And I also know how to self-soothe, and I know how to ground myself, and I know how to protect myself. But when I was younger, I didn't know any of these things. And, yeah, that would be the main thing that I would go back and tell myself or help myself with. Favorite hobbies outside of witchcraft. I mean, honestly, I don't really have any. Everything that I like to do is involved in this room. This is my sanctuary. I'm here from sunup to sundown. whether I'm working or studying or whatever it is. I do like to cook, although I don't, really cook as much as I used to. I did used to snowboard, but I don't do that really as much anymore. I'm not very craftsy or artsy. Um, I do like yoga. Yoga has come in and out of my life at different times. I'm currently doing Kundalini yoga, which is completely different than I expected it to be, and it's nothing like Hatha yoga. I thought it was going to be all breath work and meditation, and there is a lot of breath work and meditation, but you're working out. It's not like the down dog and the up dog and the cobra, and it's not like the asanas you're used to in Hatha yoga or vinyasa or even Ashtanga, but it is a workout. So I'm learning Kundalini yoga. My husband and I go every Wednesday. Mm, Hobbies. We like to, um, he and I like to go out and like our side by side. If you're not, if you don't live in a mountainous area like me, a side by side, or some people call them like a razor. So, it's not like a four-wheeler, it's like a buggy, and you can, go through the mountains and go on different trails. And we like to do that. My husband and I like to ride bikes. He likes to ride a mountain bike, but we like to more like go downtown in our local area and go to dinner and go have some drinks and kind of just ride our bikes around. And we collect vintage Schwinn's. So mine's like a 1949 Schwinn that I ride, and it's green and I love it. It's like my favorite thing. So that's a hobby of mine. But really my favorite things to do are these things. Read, read books, study religion, study, occultism, magic. So yeah, anyway, this was a fun tag. Sorry that I, was a Debbie Downer at the end and had to cry, but I just hope that anybody that watches this will follow suit, and I can't wait to watch other people's responses. So far, I've only seen Carla's and Abby's, but I look forward to watching some other videos. So, see you guys next time.